Welcome back to my workshop. One thing that I tried to figure out when I made this candle stand out of this old beam is how old this beam actually is. It's from my late grandmother's house, which has been demolished in the meantime and which I salvaged from that old rubble. And the house was built in the 1870s, so that's when this beam got built into that house. But the beams that I salvaged have mortises that were not in use in the position that they were in my grandmother's house. So when the house was built, these beams were already second-hand and they had been in some other house before that. So if we assume that that other house was at least 50 or 70 years in use before it got demolished, then this beam is probably from around 1800. So the oak tree that made it up grew in the 18th century. Another thing that I tried to figure out was how to work this surface from old and dirty into something beautiful. And it turned out that it's a good idea to start with a steel wire brush because its sturdy wires actually get off the rough dirt and get off the loose wood chips that stuck only loosely to the surface. And when I was finished with that, the surface was clean but still very rough. Then, when this got a little tedious, I used this brass brush, but it gets attached to the drill. So even though the brass is softer than the steel, through the speedy rotation, it has about the same effect as the steel brush. And after that, I wanted to get the surface to be smoother and have the edges smooth and so on. So I used the sander to sand everything down. And the last step then was the wire brush made of brass, but the hand version this time. And this then gets the surface into a little more shape and gives it a little more structure, which gets lost in the sanding process. But the wire brush with the soft brass wires then works out that structure once again. And the final step was to soak everything in boiled linseed oil. So I'm quite content with how this turned out. This disc here is to support the candle. Just wait a second. This is supposed to be a candle stand, so there's where the candle goes. And I used the angle grinder to make this slot here because I needed a disc that had a smaller diameter than this disc. Otherwise, there would have been gaps on the outsides here, and I didn't want that. So I used the angle grinder, which of course is a bit unusual, but worked okay. And I just used some glue, which works on both metal and wood, to attach this disc into that slot. All in all, I'm quite content about how this turned out. If you did like the video and you do like my project, I'd appreciate if you give it a thumbs up, if you share it with your friends, if you leave a comment, and if it's your first time here, if you subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you back soon for the next step on the woodworking journey. Bye bye.